Welcome to Pete Monfre Tells the Truth, where every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central we expose the underbelly of the marketing industry. And I share my hard-earned knowledge so that you can make better marketing decisions and avoid wasting money on marketing boondoggles that just don't work. I'm your not-so-humble host, Pete Monfre. I've been called the Simon Cowell of marketing, the great gray curmudgeon of marketing, and I've been featured in Inc. magazine, Forbes, and countless business journals and other publications. I've owned and operated a B2B marketing firm for 32 years, working with dozens of household name brands and many more up-and-coming and growing clients. So you can learn more about me and my company at my LinkedIn profile or heading over to claritymarketingsupport.com. Check out our blog where you'll find a lot more wisdom. And you can also subscribe to my podcasts at our channel on YouTube, and we'll give you those links down in the comments. So today's guest is powerhouse author, consultant, coach, teacher, musician, astronaut, Jim Cathcart. And let's take a quick look at he's going to hate this because he's a really humble guy. But let's take a quick look at his Wikipedia page here. Where is it? Oh, there it is. So Jim has authored 22. Well, one thing that comes to mind immediately is why all my friends have Wikipedia pages and I don't. But Jim has an amazing career, and it warrants a wiki page. 22 books: Intelligent Curiosity, Relationship Selling, which is where I first really discovered him, The Acorn Principle, all best-selling books, TEDx presenter. He's just been doing this for a long time, and lots of awards, and you can go, search on Jim Cathcart, and you will certainly find him. Be your own sales manager: strategies and tactics for managing your accounts, your territory, and yourself. So, marketing and sales and leadership and teaching people how to make the leap from the corporate job to the good life, right? Right, Jim? To the life of the self-employed expert, which brings up the question. Well, first I want to ask you a little bit about your background, but today's big question is expertise. It's like ether. You can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't touch it. Maybe you can hear it, but how do you sell it? And that's a big question. But I have a question for you to kick it off here. You're not an astronaut. I just threw that in there. As far as I know, you could be.
Haven't been yet.
They wouldn't surprise me at all. Like, you'd be like, hey, check this out. I have a spacesuit. But where did you start, and how did you get to hear the short version?
The short version is I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. I had no college degree. I was married with a new baby at home in 1972. And I had 40 different jobs, if you count everything I ever did for actual salary or pay. Didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I was working for the Housing Authority, the Urban Renewal Agency, for like $525 a month. And I was overweight and out of shape. And I heard the radio playing in the next room. And it was Earl Nightingale, the Dean of Personal Motivation, who was on 900 radio stations at the time worldwide. And he said, if you will spend 1 extra hour each day studying your chosen field, in 5 years or less, you'll be a leading authority in that field. And I thought, that makes sense. That's 1,250 hours when you do the math, hour a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, 5 years. 1,250 hours, what would I be an expert on if I had my choice? And I didn't know. So I thought about it for weeks, and then it hit me, I want to do what he does, but I didn't know what he does. So I had to figure out, what does it mean, to motivate and inspire and help other people succeed? And how in the world am I going to do that when I've never succeeded? So I spent many years fanatically focused on learning the whole field of applied behavioral science, human development, and teaching other people's courses And then over time, I developed my own materials. I bought an interest in a psychological research firm. I had a handful of partnerships with other experts. And today I've done 3,300 paid speeches all over the earth, 23 major cities, every major venue in the United States almost. I've been in all 50 states for pay. Speaker Hall of Fame, Sales and Marketing Hall of Fame, president of the National Speakers Association, 24 books now. Oh, I mean, I've done it, been there, done that, and love doing it, and can't imagine not doing this. People say, when are you going to retire? I said, you can come to my retirement party. Don't be fooled if they call it a funeral, but
well, it's a lot of, what amazes me is that at that age that you somehow knew that path existed.
Yeah, that was sort of a intuitive sense. I didn't know what it was, but it sure felt right. And Earl Nightingale was the big deal, the Tony Robbins or Elon Musk of his day. He was everywhere, and everyone was listening to him. And I was selling Earl Nightingale's recordings a year later, and I did that for a little while. And then 10 years later, I got a call out of the blue. I was in California by that time, and I got a call, and it was Earl Nightingale calling me.
How about that?
My company publishes programs on self-development, and I read an article of yours that I think would be a good audio program. And I said, well, sir, first off, I used to sell your products, and I absolutely had my life transformed by your wisdom. So thank you for that. And that program you read about is in audio form already. He said, send it to me. I sent it to him in Chicago, and he said, we like it. If you'll re-record it, we'll publish it. And in 1984 and 85, Nightingale Conant not only was selling my recordings, they sold $3.5 million worth in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I went from hearing him on the radio to selling his products to him selling my products.
So Earl Nightingale, look him up. That's interesting because that was a huge spark, and Nightingale practically published over the course of different works a roadmap to do it. And so, and really, you've come full circle. I mean, you've done so many things, but right now, you're very focused on helping people kind of make a transition from a professional job, let's say, the job your mom wanted you to get, versus the job that you want, which might be, I mean, we here at Clarity Marketing Support, what we do when we sell it and when we're marketing it, it doesn't exist yet. Right. And so you're really selling this intangible thing. And I think it's a unique sell. And you're, in a sense, teaching people not just that part, but how to discover. I mean, you can put it into better words than me, but how to discover what their thing is, right? What are you an expert in? And most of us underestimate our expertise, right?
And my whole thing is helping people succeed. But to succeed, you have to have a desired target. You got to have a goal, because there's nothing to measure success against if you don't have something you want. And what you want could be like Mother Teresa helping the poorest of the poor, or it could be like Elon Musk being the richest man in the world, or it could be like, some military leader or some athlete or whatever. But you got to know what you want. And I love the name of your company, Clarity Marketing Support. See, I teach, the program that I take people through is called the Going Pro Experience. And its product is clarity, knowing clearly exactly what it is you want and what you're going after and what that's going to look and feel like when you get there, right? Courage and confidence. Courage to face the challenges you're going to deal with that would overwhelm others, and confidence to stand boldly in front of others and state your case for whatever it is you are able to do to make the world a better place. So the Going Pro experience takes people, only people who are committed to succeeding. But I'm not interested in people who are going to go try to succeed. If you decide in advance that you're going to succeed, then that means you're willing to take the time, pay the price, endure the pain, go through the awkwardness, embarrassment, and occasional failures to ultimately succeed. That's unstoppable. You
Yes.
cannot defend against that. That person will succeed regardless. Now, how quickly you succeed depends on whether you get the right guidance or not. And that's my job, is to provide that kind of guidance.
It's
When you say, Jim, I've been toying with this for years, but I'm going to go pro. What do I need to do? Well, the minute you declare you're going professional, like a golfer deciding to go professional, the rules and expectations for you radically change.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
live up to a higher standard.
In a way, it's a shortcut because because the big thing that stood out for me is there's a period of time where it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And people underestimate how long that is. I see different people asking questions at different forums where they're saying, man, I've had this business up for 2 months and it's just not going well. I think I've really made a huge mistake. 2 months? What I got, I'm 30 years on this business, so we started in 1990. So that's like it's like geologic time versus
I know.
a fleeting
I started
thought.
mine in 1977.
77. So it takes time to go through that cycle that you described, and there is failure. And actually, the cycle that I've seen is failure, success, failure, success, failure, success. It's like that.
And at least
thing.
you should at least be failing forward.
Yes. Well, yeah. And we like to tell the truth on this show. It could be a decade for some people. It could be 15 years. I had it shortened up because I brought in an advisor. I'm trying to remember. There was actually several. I can think of 3 right now.
Name
3
for
different
me.
people that we brought into our company because we were having trouble with it, and we were new at having a company. We were good at what we did, but we sure didn't know much about having a company. And I'd say that what we do today is almost a direct result of what they showed us, what they taught us, and we're able to speed us up really to the tune of millions of dollars in revenue in a few years.
Same
But
here.
we still had to hang in there those few years.
Yeah, I've hired many people for tens of thousands of dollars to help me develop my expertise or refine my business or improve my platform skills or whatever. I've reached out many, many times, and everyone I know at the top of their game, and I know a lot of people at the very pinnacle of their career success, every one of them has reached out and hired other people to help them
Yes.
get there faster. You look at the top athletes, from Serena Williams to Tiger Woods, to name it, every one of them hired coaches and traded coaches when one of them had reached the limit of what they were able to contribute.
Well, absolutely. When I was growing up, I taught private guitar lessons. That was one way I put myself through school. And often students would outgrow me. And so I had a list of people. I'd send them off to the conservatory or someplace. And, one of the coolest things is all of them, I was going to say many of them are adults. But I guess all of them would be adults, wouldn't they, by now? But a few of them have really gone on to become really accomplished musicians, far beyond what I would ever imagine myself. And so it's about acceleration, I think. And I don't know if people really understand that. But the other thing you said that's really, I think, a difficult thing for people is, how did you put it? What do I want?
Yeah.
I mean,
You
I'll tell you,
answer-
you asked me that when I was 21, and I would just give you the blank stare.
Same here. And what people say is, well, I want to be happy, healthy, and have plenty of money. In other words, they want what all living things want. They want happiness. In other words, they want to flourish without worry or fear. They want health. In other words, not to be inhibited by their physical limits. And they want freedom, which is what money represents. So what doesn't want that? Plants
Right.
want that. Amoebas want that, So that's
You know,
a lame answer, but that's about as clear as most people have ever gotten on it.
well, I had three things. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Well,
That's
that
it. When
yeah.
I was 21. But those almost align with what you said, almost.
Well, I started to say the difference with that
Not
goal,
really.
you know, that goal is certainly a goal along the male testosterone timeline.
Well, you're not failing up though, are you?
Yeah,
That's
but
the problem.
but that one uses up your resources,
Yes.
whereas the other goals actually make you more and more and more capable the longer you're in the game. So I spend a
Right.
lot of time with people taking different approaches to getting them to answer, what do I want? And what does it look like, smell like, feel like? What's it going to be like? What are the versions of it that it might appear in? And how can I optimize that? By the way, I want to make a quick comment about the theme,
Sure.
tell the truth. In 2020, right at the beginning of the COVID era, I was honored to be the guest of honor for the Golden Door Awards, which was a worldwide thing based in Singapore. That was a celebration of truth in writing and in journalism. And I was the guest of honor for that. And it was people from Africa and England and India and all over the world. And what an honor, and how, what a responsibility when they say you're the guest of honor and the subject is truth. You ain't gonna fake that till you make it. Right? Better tell the truth going in.
Tell the truth. Well, that song is actually from a band called King Johnson. That's kind of an East Coast band I played with years and years ago, Chris and Oliver. And it's called, I think the album's called Cats and Dogs. And looks like we have a little bit of a sync problem for some reason, our producer Heidi says, but we don't care. But I thought it was a great song, and I love their work, and it's good for the program. But we're talking about accelerating, and why I think that becomes important for your clients and mine is because many of them really are not really starting to think about what do I want until maybe in their mid-30s, maybe in their early 40s, right? Maybe even later. And so you need something to get on a track. And I think what you've developed is and I've experienced some of it, there's an organization to it. I know what we do, it's a very process-based, systematic way of solving problems. And it can be applied to any sort of problem. In this case, if the problem is, what do I want? I don't know. You know what? You've done it over and over again with people, and there's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And you facilitate that. You don't tell people what they'd here's what you should, that's not it.
That's right. Yeah. If they say, what should I want? Then they're not ready for the program. There's a man in Australia named Matt Church who wrote a book on thought leadership, on how to build a thought leader's practice that I saw many years ago. But he has an interesting model in the book. He talks about the different roles that a thought leader might fill, and that's author, speaker, trainer, mentor, facilitator, coach, consultant. And there's direct thought leadership, and then there's indirect. And indirect is where you work through others. Direct is where you are spouting the truth, from your own voice. And then there's tell and ask. And ask would be facilitating, coaching, mentoring, being a trainer, whereas telling would be speaker, author, subject expert, mentor. And so what I've chosen to do in my own career is first, way back in the 1970s when I started all this, I had to answer a question. What do I want when it comes to building my business? Am I building the come with me and let's make you a leader program, Institute, Inc., or am I building Jim Cathcart Corporation? And I decided that instead of building like Leadership Excellence Incorporated, I wanted to build Cathcart Institute. And I wanted to be like my heroes, Og Mandino, who was an author, Zig Ziglar, a few other people that I admired, Earl Nightingale. So I focused on making me the product.
You know,
And
let
I
me.
had,
I don't,
I had to spend a lot of time making me worthy.
well, you know that there's. I'm having this recall thing where I remember a little short list from somewhere, and it even may have been in one of your books, and it talks about it isn't enough. It's not just enough to write all the time, but writing with conviction, writing with authority, believing in that what you have to say is important. And my realization, you know, again, you know, we've been doing this for so many. I know I've had hundreds and hundreds of clients, and so after a while, you start to really hone in on what is. You don't want to talk over people's head, and you don't want to talk under their heads. Again, all of this just takes time. You can speed it up by getting some help, but it just takes time. You figure it out. But that, you know, you and I are both musicians. It carries over to that. I mean, sometimes, you know, if I'm not too certain of the song, well, you wouldn't know it by looking at me. And it's not fake it till you make it either. I think that's a fallacy that I hear repeated all the time.
Right.
No, you can't fake it. As long as you're
And if you
faking,
do
you're
fake
not
it,
going to be successful.
You're insulting your audience when you do.
Absolutely. And you're, in some
The whole
cases,
reason for you to be there is them.
in the marketing
Give
industry,
value to them. Yeah.
you know, they'll literally, I mean, I think it crosses over to fraud where people, they promise experience and skills that they actually don't possess. I mean, and it's become, well, it's okay, we're faking it until we make it. No, what you're doing is you're training on your client's dollar. Okay, you're
Yeah.
learning shit on the client's dollar, and it's unethical. All right, so be
And-
patient, learn your shit, and then you know what you're an expert
And
in.
you're faking it, you're lying.
You're lying. Yes, thank you. So these are the things we talk. These are the truths that we uncover on the show, and it's rampant. It's rampant in your space, in whether it's leadership or coaching or consulting. It's rampant in the marketing space, and so you just the dumb thing is people only fake it until they don't make it for a very short period of time because people aren't stupid, right? And so you know most people can, though, even let's say that you are trying to make a transition and you're struggling with these things, you know, everyone can look back if they can see objectively. That's where people like you can help, and see the thread that is their real expertise, the thing that they know in their core, and you're gonna find out very quickly you know way more than everybody else. Now you may run into somebody that knows more about it than you do. Well, they're probably not going to be a client. Who cares?
Yeah. You know, the one thing you can fake until you make it is confidence. You can, if you're feeling afraid, don't behave as if you're afraid. Behave as if you weren't. That you could fake for brief periods of time. But faking the expertise, no.
You know, I've been on stage for so
Making the
long.
world a better place.
I've been on stage for so long. We usually go about 30 minutes. We're going to go a little bit longer if anybody's still with us. But I remember, you know, when I would start doing speaking or even when I started performing, I was shaking. Right? Like, but what I realized over time is, you know, I don't get much of an adrenaline dump anymore, but I used to, right? And I was worried. And I realized people can't see it. Now, if you hold up a piece of paper while you're talking, right? But generally you think everybody can see that. And so it's not hard to be confident. And David Sandler would say, you only have to be confident for about 15 seconds at a time. You know, I always love that. It's like either, you know, maybe when you're saying, hey, this is what it's going to take, here's the cost. You know, you need to be brave 20, 15 seconds at a time. But I think that's really important. And I'm glad that we talked about, you know, fake it till you make it, but definitely confidence. And what gives you confidence? Preparation, real knowledge.
Yeah,
Right?
and
So you got to do the study part.
knowing you can handle the difficulties you encounter. Like basic training in the Army, they have an obstacle course, but they don't call it an obstacle course. They call it a confidence course. Because as you run it and encounter all those obstacles and struggle past them, you build your own confidence. And the second, third, fifth, 20th time you run it, you get to where you say, okay, bring it. Let it happen, Captain. Let's make this, make this thing go. And you jump right in. And the same thing's true in business. Same thing's true in public speaking. Toastmasters have been so successful worldwide because every meeting, every member gets on their feet in front of the group and does something. A self-introduction, they lead the pledge to the flag, they give an invocation, they introduce another speaker, they summarize a speaker, you know, the speaker's message, they whatever. But every single meeting, you're on your feet with other people looking at you.
Absolutely.
You ever want to build confidence in speaking? One exercise is kind of useful, is get together with a group of people that are seated. And when it's your turn to speak, stand up. Be the only person in the group standing up. You will immediately feel discomfort and awkwardness, you know, and if you practice that with a group of friends, and every time you participate, whatever, you could be talking about the latest Star Wars movie, you know, it doesn't matter. You just say, okay, Pete, you're next. And then Pete has to stand up to say, well, I didn't like it when Obi-Wan Kenobi did, because that lightsaber didn't look like the real deal. And I think they could have refilmed that, you know, and that, blah, blah, blah. Fine. But if he stands up to say that, all of a sudden, all the nervousness comes. There's something about being the center of focus that does that. And you do that often enough on any subject, you'll get to where you're as comfortable in the front of a room with a spotlight on you as you are lost in the crowd. I certainly.
Yeah. What I like to do is get on an elevator and face everyone.
Yeah, I've done that only a few times.
But then what you do, but here's the thing, it is, and here's the trick. You get in and you push the floor. If you're going up, you push the floor 2 floors up. So you get in and then you get off at the next stop and you run up the stairs and then you stand outside the elevator and say, "I heard what you said about me." You know, that's but. That's for real. Good. When I first started making videos, I really had to go through a process about who is the on-camera Pete. You know, people, and I appreciate this, folks. You know, I do get people saying, you know, "God, you're so natural on camera." You know, listen, it takes practice, and I had to have some deliberate thought. You know, does the on-camera Pete swear as much as the normal Pete? You know, no. How does he dress? You know, I mean, what is he? You know.
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of like going pro, the concept. When you're on camera, you have gone pro. In other words, what you're doing is being recorded and preserved and projected probably.
Live, with all of our technical problems, which I have solved, by the way.
Very good. Thank you.
But yes.
I say to people, come with me and let's discover how much more successful you could be. And then we work with everything focused on them, finding out what they want, what's the best way to articulate that, what's the best way to start making it become true, and then what qualities do you need to cultivate in you to be an eligible receiver for the things you want. Because if you're not worthy as a receiver, the things you want may come to you, but not to stay. You'll have them for a brief moment and lose them. It's like the lottery winners that never got their act together as a person, and they blew all the money in the first year. And they're broke again. You know, they had millions at one point and now it's all gone.
Most of them.
Yeah,
you know, one of the things that I heard talked about in the group too that you run is, you know, once you have this kind of figured out and you've got it packaged, and that can happen in a relatively short period of time when you're using a system. But one of the big concerns is, you know, now how do I bring it to the market? You know, I use the word sell in the title, but it's really market and sell. How do you draw people to you? You know, I mean, it's great to do speaking, but people have to show up, right? It's great to do a live show. And let me reveal something about the live show. I've had people say, well, you don't get that many live visitors. Well, we've been doing this for a month or two. And so, you know, we're in this for the long haul. That number will change. But actually, that is not a metric we care about, is how many people watch this live. Right? This video lives on, and it gets cut up, and it gets reposted, and it gets shared, and it goes for months and months and months, and years actually. And so, again, I wouldn't understand that unless I went through a process to figure out my marketing plan and my message, and even the name of the show. What does it look like? What's the tone? Who do I have on? All of this figured out in advance, and I was able to do it pretty rapidly because I have a system. It's the same system I use with clients, but that's a big concern. Tell me a little bit about that, because you're a sales and marketing guy. You know, it's a valid concern. This is not easy to market and sell.
First off, you need to recognize that selling is problem solving for pay.
Thank you.
If
Yes.
they don't have a problem or a need that you can fill, there's not going to be any selling going on. There might be some manipulation and persuasion, but that's going to be superficial, and they're going to resent it after it's over.
Some
So
convincing.
it's not about getting a sale. It's about making a difference. And that's the big deal. It's about making a difference for the person you're serving. And if you're giving a speech, then it's about making a difference for the audience members who hear you. And,
Right.
and that's your number one job.
Yeah, you have to know your role in that equation. I'll
Yeah,
use a
what
music
problem am I
example
solving?
again. A music example again. The purpose. What's your purpose there as an ensemble? Let's say, is it to play your music? No, it actually isn't. It's to entertain people and keep them there so they drink more. That's your job. If you're in a club, right? Or even in a theater nowadays, really, they make their money on the bar. So that is what your job is. As a consultant, you have to understand the context. Let's say you're speaking is different from consulting. And then you mentioned selling. Too many people think when you say salesman, they think of used car, bad plaid suits,
Persuaders,
people that lie and talk you into stuff,
Partner in problem
convincers.
solving.
Right. But it's like, that's not really it. It's, if you really are authentically and you care about the problem, it's why I started this program. It's why I've been blogging for 15 years.
Yeah.
It's because I see too many people making bad decisions with marketing. Either they're choosing the wrong people to spend money with, or they're got belief systems that are jacking up their head, or maybe they're just not aware that there's a way to do it. That is such a great book. I couldn't find mine, so I'm going to bother you. I'm going to bug you to get me one.
Okay.
Or I can go buy it. That's fine too. But I want one that you signed. But I know I had it before. And it probably here is in the mess somewhere. You can't see the mess because of that. No,
Well,
there's
let's
no.
get together soon and I'll bring it.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it will be awesome. And we'll have guitars in the room.
Once you figured out your thing, right, and you figured and you've gotten yourself comfortable, so a lot of people are worried about marketing and sales before that they've kind of gotten it together. Once it starts to come together, the way to put it out to market starts to become a lot more obvious. I think people try to eat the whole elephant in one bite, and you can't.
The purpose of selling, and this is, I used to do a TV show called The Purpose of Selling, because so many people misunderstand the purpose. They think it's persuasion. No, the purpose of selling is solving problems for pay. In other words, it's making life better for somebody, and they're going to compensate you for doing that. And the reason I wrote this book under this title, and I was the first to publicize and champion that title, relationship selling,
Right.
was to get people to treat relationships as assets. This is not Dale Carnegie, be nice to people selling. Dale Carnegie is great, but this is not about being nice to people, though you should. It's about valuing relationships as assets, business assets. And there's stages in a relationship from mere acquaintance through life partner. And you can determine which stage you want to achieve with each person or company. And you can hit the milestones along that way. In other words, it's a manageable, doable system of
Yes.
action, right?
I think that's kind of been a theme,
Process.
It's the
Is it-
process, it's a system. Don't expect yourself to know it all, because you have to go through a process. And also, if you're trying things, this is another thing I see is people, maybe they know what their expertise is. They maybe they are a consultant, but they're not seeing enough opportunity coming in. And they're just trying different things, seeing what sticks. It's like, if you haven't gone through, if you think back and you say, I've never really gone through a deliberate process to identify my ideal customer, to figure out my cost of acquisition, to figure out which, like every Facebook, LinkedIn, paid ads, SEO, websites, to me, I look at them all like they're levers. And so a deliberate process, you can figure out, well, which levers are right for us, and then how much do we push each lever? Right? And maybe you don't have many
Like a
resources,
keyboard.
so you don't have very many levers, right?
Like playing a keyboard and
Yeah,
music.
you have to go through that in a deliberate way, because there's a million variables. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed, I don't know how to take this to market, or I'm not seeing enough opportunities, it's actually pretty easy to solve once you know the process. It's really what you and I do is we bring a process, we facilitate. We don't tell you what your strategy is. We have figured out right along with you. But going pro.
By the way, there's a second step, and
Please.
this is where most people go astray. They'll sit with you or me, and they'll work out all the details, and they'll get this plan together, and they'll be ready to go change the world for the rest of their life. They'll be ready. And not changing the world, they're ready to change the world. Step number 2 is this, clearly. Increase human contact. See more people.
Yeah.
Get in front of more eyes. Go to more places. Be more visible. Be engaged. Say yes to more opportunities. If someone says, would you be on my podcast? Yes. But let me tell you what it's about. Okay. But first, let's register that I just said yes, right?
You just made a lot of people really anxious, but it's true, because there's a behavior that I know I've been guilty of in years past where I turn inward when I should be turning outward. I should be picking up the phone instead of sending that email. It's simple things. It's behaviors. Sandler talks a lot about behaviors. Like, you don't worry about any individual behaviors. You just worry that if you know that you're doing the behaviors, the results are going to come. And so, what does this all mean? There's a process to figure out the behaviors, then you have to do them. And at the end of the day, you're one human being. And you're not selling to a company either. You're selling to some other human being across the table. And it comes back to having a relationship. Now, you have to put in effort and time. We have a saying here that we've said for years. We value long-term relationships over short-term gain.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Good.
You and I haven't done business together. We've known each other for a while, but we just continue to bring each other value.
We should define relationship. I've asked many, many, many audiences, dozens and maybe hundreds, what is a relationship? And then I get the deer in headlights response. And then someone says, oh, it's a connection. It's someone you know. No, here's the definition I came up with. A relationship is a direct connection between people in which value is exchanged. And value could be friendship or fun or information or money. It could be any number of things. But if there's no value being exchanged, it's simply an acknowledgement or an acquaintance. It's not a relationship yet.
Absolutely.
So how do you make it worth more? Give more value.
Give more, yeah.
Value is what they say is valuable, not what you say is valuable, what they say is valuable. So
Right.
Step 1 in your career as a thought leader, identify people's problems that you can solve. Step 2, help them solve their problems. Step 3, increase human contact. Step 4, enjoy your rewards.
Excellent. Well, it's 11:47, and so we have a thing that I usually promote at the end of the show. We have our next event coming up June 11th with a special guest, Matt Smith, who is an absolute animal guitarist. I'm an artist in residence at the Saxon Pub in Austin, Texas, and so that is actually a gathering, a networking event. Where we build relationships, and I have used that as a vehicle to raise my profile, right? And so we'd like, if you're in Austin, Texas, it's at 6 o'clock. Man, join us. It's a blast. We have a good time. We have a great crowd. And Matt is I know. Isn't that fun? It's just pure fun. But thank you, Jim Cathcart, our guest today. Man, what a great conversation. I think you and I should have more podcasts together and do this more.
Oh, I agree.
We have
people can find me so easily at jimcathcart.com.
Just like it sounds. And then join us here on LinkedIn at 11 o'clock every Thursday for Pete Monfre and friends. Tell the truth, and that's what we'll do. But thank you and have a great day. And sorry about all the glitchiness, but we got it solved, and more to come. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. I have to try to remember.